happening, gang? It's your boy Retro back again with another reaction video. Yeah. Today we got another huge update. You guys can probably already tell that it is going down. Just by that title alone, you guys are definitely gonna want to check this one out. So we're finally seeing those former Biden officials being held accountable for their egregious use of the infamous Autopen in this one, guys. And I'm excited to get into it. So we're gonna hop straight into it. All I ask that you guys please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's hop straight into it, folks. Check this one out.
The House Oversight Committee is investigating the cover-up of Biden's cognitive decline as 4 former Biden aides agreed to transcribed interviews. Joining me now is the man overseeing it all, Kentucky Congressman and the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer. Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I want to get your take on something the president said this week, and that is saying we're looking into who was in control of the Autopen, whether it be Lisa Monaco or someone else. Now, Lisa Monaco, of course, was the Deputy Attorney General. What do you know about this?
Well, we know that there are sources that say that she had a big impact on making decisions as to which documents would be placed into the Autopen. What we've identified first are the 4 employees that we believe manually put documents into the Autopen, pressed the power button, and signed Joe Biden's name on them. Next batch of people that we're going to bring in are people like Ron Klain, and we'll get to the names that the president has mentioned as well. Everyone that we've sent notice to that we expect them to testify has agreed to testify thus far, except the doctor, and I've subpoenaed him. You can come in voluntarily, and things work out a whole lot better than if you have to come in via subpoena. So I think this investigation is progressing, and all the concerns that President Trump raised will be addressed in these transcribed interviews and depositions.
I mean, I've got the letter from 2024 from Dr. O'Connor pertaining to Joe Biden's health, and there's absolutely no mention of any cognitive decline, and there's no mention of any prostate cancer, which, of course, the Bidens released and told the public after the Robert Hur tapes were released, which was obviously a tape showing Biden's cognitive decline. I want to get your take on that and what you make of that, and also this new information that we've got that there were 3 different Autopens, Autopen A, B, and C.
Yeah, that's accurate. And, there's more information that's coming out daily. Luckily, we have a lot of former employees like Jean-Pierre who are coming out with books and interviews that are kind of painting a picture that Joe Biden really didn't know what was going on in his White House. This is important to our investigation because there were a lot of executive orders that were signed using the Autopen. There's really no excuse to use the Autopen on days when you're in the White House. Many of the documents that were signed with the Autopen were days that Joe Biden was actually in the White House. It's hard to explain that with respect to the doctor. If you'll remember, Joe Biden did an interview several years ago and said he had cancer. The White House quickly issued a statement saying, he misspoke. Now, how many people do you know in the history of the world that have misspoke saying they had cancer when they really didn't? So, there's evidence out there that would suggest that there's been a cover-up with respect to his cancer for many years, just based on Joe Biden's own words. So we've got a lot of evidence. There's more and more sources that are coming forward. The key to a good congressional investigation, Maria, is having whistleblowers. I don't know if you would classify Jean-Pierre and people like Buttigieg as whistleblowers, but they're issuing statements and doing interviews that are very incriminating to Joe Biden, very incriminating to Joe Biden's doctor, and raise a lot of questions as to who was authorizing the use of that Autopen.
Well, I mean, Mr. Chairman, for 4 years, we all questioned some of these policies coming out of the White House that were so clearly anti-American. For example, leaving a wide open border and an unvetted border rather than actually understanding and knowing who's coming into the country. Millions of gotaways, 350 people encountered on the terrorist watch list. $7 trillion in spending leading to 40-year high inflation. Do you believe that there was a group of people who were actually pushing these anti-American policies and Joe Biden was unaware of it?
I believe it's very possible. If you look at Joe Biden's career, when he was on the Senate floor, he gave speeches, encouraging a border, a tight border. He encouraged, a process to get immigration. But when he became president, just out of the blue, the Autopen started signing executive orders that would allow an open border. And you have liberals in the Democrat Party that have risen the ranks through the bureaucracies here in Washington, D.C., that believe that we need to fundamentally change the appearance of America, that America's too white, that we need more immigrants to come in. We need more people that would end up being registered Democrats. That's a fact. So the possibility is there that there were deep state bureaucrats in the White House that were just using that Autopen to sign major legislation and major executive orders that Joe Biden had no knowledge of and never would have supported if you look at his previous 3 decades of public service.
Now, that's just incredible. I mean, just to be clear, I think most people would say they support lots of diversity and different ethnicities in America. What I'm really talking about is an unvetted situation in a world where China is on the march, Iran is on the march, and Russia is invading countries. You want to know that there aren't terrorists coming in, and you've got 350 people on the terrorist watch list who were encountered at the open border.
Wow, you guys. So we're seeing there is some serious movement and momentum surrounding the whole Biden Autopen scandal. That was Oversight Chairman James Comer breaking it down, saying he is bringing folks in, former Biden White House aides, officials in to testify in front of the Oversight Committee to get to the bottom of this whole scandal. One former aide stands out the most, though. Neera Tanden was among that list of the 4 aides that willingly came in to testify. We've actually got some documents of her response and her excuse for why she was using the Autopen in the Biden White House, guys. I'm excited to get into that. We're going to get into that here shortly. But first, I want to get a couple reactions from folks on X. We got Lorene Trent here on X tweeting out in response to Donald Trump, saying, let's get going on holding accountable the corrupt politicians. Let's not forget the Autopen. And that was in response to Donald Trump's Truth Social post, saying what Biden did to this country should never be forgotten, and rightfully so. We have to get to the bottom of this whole Autopen scandal. Then we got Nick Sorter here on X trying to figure things out. He's saying, what the heck? All of those involved in the Biden Autopen scandal are being interviewed by Congress behind closed doors. Make it a public hearing. The people deserve to know. That one definitely has been a big question and concern in my head as well. Like, why are they not making this open door testimony so the public can see the scandal, the corruption of the last regime? But yet and still, we're still getting to the bottom of it. We're going to get the truth. So hopefully they're holding these figures accountable behind closed doors. And then, as promised, we've got the prepared remarks from the former Biden aide Neera Tanden. The remarks that she's prepared for the Oversight Committee, all in a document. Got a couple key points being tweeted out here by Andrew Cylinder here on X. Let's read through them. Check out what she had to say. Quote, she is saying my cooperation should not be taken to mean that I think the committee's investigation is a worthy subject. So she's saying even though she's testifying, she doesn't believe that, the investigation holds any weight or validity. And then she goes on to list that the Autopen system was actually inherited from prior administrations. So she's trying to do the Democratic thing and push the blame off onto prior administration, saying she wasn't the one or they weren't the ones that created this Autopen, the infamous Autopen. And then she goes on to say that Biden was in command as president, which I feel like all the folks on these loonies on the left love saying that, but we could clearly see with our own 2 eyes. Everyone across the nation could see that this guy Joe Biden, everyone across the world could see this guy Joe Biden was not in charge. We've got the full document here of Neera Tanden's statement, her opening statement to the Oversight Committee. All right, you guys, so here is Neera Tanden's statements to the Oversight Committee. I do apologize for the very small font. I blew it up as big as possible, but you could tell that she used Times New Roman 12-point font. Very familiar with that being a college student, but let's hop straight into it. She starts off saying, I am Neera Tanden. I'm here in response to the request made by Chairman James Comer in his letter to me dated May 22nd that I participate in this transcribed interview. As the committee staff knows, my counsel and I have been willing to voluntarily cooperate with this committee from the time I received this letter. I'm here to answer your questions about my service in the Biden administration. My cooperation should not be taken to mean that I think the committee's investigation is a worthy subject of oversight. I do not believe it is, so they always say it's baseless. All the investigations are baseless. We know that from old Jack Smith, old Letitia James, and Fonnie Willis. This is a typical Democratic strategy. Then she goes on to say that indeed millions of Americans wonder why this committee has conducted no oversight of the current administration on the topics far more worthy of the committee's time and attention than this one. Those topics include the sale of a Qatari jet to the White House for the private use of President Donald Trump after he leaves office, President Trump's meme coin and cryptocurrency adventures, the lawless attacks on our universities and prominent law firms, and the excessive use of ICE officers wearing masks as they detain, sometimes with use of force, people lawfully in the United States, which all is false. This is a bunch of baseless claims, false, coming after President Donald Trump and his administration. You can see the Trump derangement syndrome. She's obviously been prepped to say these things, but we continue on. She says, in this country, at this time, there is truly a need for genuine oversight of the executive branch and its overreach. But instead, this committee is devoting its resources to the last administration instead of the current one. So she's saying, go after Donald Trump. Stop worrying about what happened in the past. Let us get away with our crooked corruption in peace. Let us run for the hills. But then she continues on saying, let me discuss my service in the White House. She says, in May 2021, President Biden named me as a senior advisor with a portfolio that included healthcare issues, among others. In October 2021, I was named staff secretary and senior advisor. As staff secretary, I was responsible for handling the flow of documents to and from the president. I was also authorized to direct that Autopen signatures be affixed to certain categories of the document. So she was authorized to use the signature, the Autopen signature for certain documents. Okay. Then she goes on to say we had a system for authorizing the use of the Autopen that I inherited from prior administrations. We employed that system throughout my tenure as staff secretary. So she's saying it wasn't us. We didn't create this system, this method of the Autopen. This came from past administrations. So forgive us. Then she continues saying, in May 2023, I was named head of the President's Domestic Policy Council. From that point forward, I no longer served in the role as staff secretary, and I was no longer responsible for the overall flow of documents to and from the president, and I no longer had any responsibilities in connection or use with the Autopen. Okay, so she's trying to ditch her responsibility and role and say she wasn't even authorized after 2023. So we're just investigating from 2021 to May 2023. That was her tenure where she was authorized to use said Autopen. Then she goes on to say, as head of the Domestic Policy Council, I had periodic discussions with President Biden on a range of domestic policy issues. I would note that much of the public discussion on the subject matter of this hearing has conflated two very different issues. First, president's age, and second, whether President Biden was in command as president. I had no experience in the White House that would provide any reason to question his command as president. He was in charge. Then she ends it off saying, I am prepared to answer your questions on the topic you were provided that are within the scope of your inquiry. Thank you. Okay. Yo, there we have it, guys. Oh my goodness. Oversight Chairman James Comer has got these individuals, these former Biden officials, shaking in their boots. You can tell just by the testimony, their open statements coming from near a tandem that they're a bit spooked behind the question, the concern, and all the subpoenas coming down the pipeline. They kept hearing the Trump administration speaking about this date coming, but they never seen it coming so quick. They thought that we were all, smoke and mirrors. We were all talk and no action. But guess what? Donald Trump's administration is going to get things done. We're going to carry it out and get to the bottom of all the crime and corruption from these fraudsters on the left. And this is just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg. I can't wait till, James Comer calls in more Biden officials, former officials, testify in front of the committee, and we'll get to the bottom of all of this. And these folks who were in charge or responsible for the infamous Autopen will finally be held accountable, guys. But definitely hop in that comment section. Comments are open, and I'm excited to hear what you guys are thinking on this one. Also, make sure you guys please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you'd enjoy more content like this, catch you guys on the next one.